नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवते उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 30th, Description of Lord Kapila, of Advice Fruity Activity, from the text 13. Text 13. Seeing him unable to support them, his wife and others do not treat him with the same respect as before. Even as a merciless farmer, do not accord the same treatment to their old and worn out oxen. Text 14. The foolish family man does not become averse to the family life, although he is maintained by those whom he once maintained. Deformed by the influence of the old age, he prepares himself to meet ultimate death. Text 15. Thus he remains at home just like a pet dog and eats whatever is so negligently given to him. Afflicted with the many illnesses such as dyspepsia and loss of appetite, he eats only very small morsel of food and he becomes an invalid who cannot work anymore. Text 16. In that diseased condition, one eyes bulge due to the pressure of the air from within his glands becomes congested with the mucus. He has difficulties breathing, and upon exhaling and inhaling, he produces a sounds like gur gur, a rattling within the truth. Text 17. In this way, he becomes under the clutches of death and lies down surrounded by the lamenting friends and relatives. And although he wants to speak with them, he no longer can because he is under the control of time. Text 18. Thus, the man who engages with the uncontrolled senses in maintaining a family dies in great grief, seeing his relatives crying. He dies more pathetically in great pain and without consciousness. Text 19. At death, he sees the messengers of the Lord of death come before him, their eyes full of wrath, and in great fear he passes stool and urine. Text 20th. As a criminal is arrested for the punishment by the constable of the state, a person engages in the criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by the Yamadutas, who bind him by the neck with a strong rope and covers his subtle body so that he may undergo severe punishment. Text 21. While carried by the constable of Yamaraja, he is overwhelmed and trembles in their hands. While passing on the road, he is bitten by the dogs, and he can remember the sinful activities of his life. He is thus terribly distressed. Text 22. Under the scorching sun, the criminals has to pass through the roads of hot sand and forest fires on both sides. He is whipped on the back by the constable because of his inability to walk and is affected by hunger and thirst. But unfortunately, there is no drinking water, no shelter, and no place for rest on the road. Text 23. While passing that road to the abode of Emaraj, he falls down in fatigue and sometimes he becomes unconsciousness, but he is forced to rise again. In this way, he is very quickly brought to the presence of Emaraja. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matai. Yeah, whenever you're ready, you can start, Prabhuji. Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah, sure, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Are you able to hear, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for everyone joining this Bhagavatam summary call. Thank you, Radharani Mataji, for reading today's translations. So today we will be reading, and we will go through the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 30, from Shlokas 13 to 23. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschaptadeshataran. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktarunda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 30th, title Descriptions by Lord Kapila of Adverse Fruitive Activities. Reading from Shlokas 13 to 23. So just to give a background, so in the previous chapter, we heard how Mother Devahuti requested his son Kapila Bhagavan to explain the devotional services and also the continual process of birth and death, where one goes through so many miseries. In that way, one can be detached from this material life. So then Kapila Bhagavan explained different grades of devotional service, like one who worships in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. Then he also explained about the pure devotional service. Then he talked about how the time is very powerful. And then he talks about how the nature is working under his direction. And in this chapter, Kapila Bhagavan answers the Mother Devahuti's other question of the continual process of birth and death, where one goes through so many miseries. So he explains how a living entity goes through so much suffering for earning the money or to maintain the family, and how he suffers through old age, and how he goes through several diseases while leading the life. And when he becomes old, how his own family members will not give respect to him because he is not adding any value at that time. Then how he goes through suffering while leaving the body. So then after leaving the body, how he will be taken by the Yamadutas to the hellish planets, and during taking also to the hellish planet, how he goes through various punishments. So, so in the last session, we heard by Her Grace Rasa Chandrika Mataji, very nicely she explained how the living entity, whichever the species he appears, so he finds a particular type of satisfaction. So like she gave an example of how Indra, the powerful demigod, king of the heavenly planet, when he was cursed to become a hog, a pig, so he find some satisfaction in that pig life, and he was not planning to come back. So how powerful that the satisfaction that one will have in that body. So then one thinks that is situated perfectly due to his deep attraction to body, wife, home, or children, like that. And due to that deep attraction, he works very hard, and sometimes he earns money illegally, like that. And then he suffers in the hell for opposite reactions. So in the last sloka, we saw that so the unfortunate man, unsuccessful in maintaining his family members, is always thinking of his failure, and he grieves very deeply. And in today's slokas 13 to 23, so the sloka 13, we see that in this sloka, seeing that he is unable to support so his wife or any other family members, they don't treat him with the same respect. And the analogy is given how a miserly farmer, so do not accord the same treatment to the old ox. And of course, this we probably see in this today's world, like when somebody becomes old and they don't add any value, then people don't respect. But looks like this is there something this is there from a long time. So even from the time of Kapila Bhagavan, so Satyuga. So this is seems to be there from that time onwards. Then Prabhupada mentions in the purport that so when someone becomes old and doesn't add any value, then the family doesn't treat well. And in fact, the kids feel that they will feel that it's a burden to take care of a old man. So and sometimes they feel very irritated, and they may scold also their elderly people. And in this regard, I heard in this one devotee was mentioning, so one time, so this person seeing that his father became old and there's not much he's adding to the family, so he wanted to take this old man and bury him while he is alive. So he and his son, who is a little boy, so they both take this old man outside of the village, and this man started digging the big hole to bury his father who is alive. And then this little boy asked the father, why he is digging the hole. Then he tells that because your grandfather is no use, so I am going to bury him. So then the little child started digging another hole. Then the man asked, why you are digging? The little child told that in few years you also become old, and then you will become burden to me, and you are not going to be any useful for me. So I am preparing for that. So then this man understands what mistake he is doing. So then he stopped from that situation. So, and here Kapila Bhagavan is giving example how a miserly farmer, they don't treat the old ox in the same way that they used to treat when the ox is it worked very hard in the previous time, but once it becomes old, then the miserly farmer, they don't treat it. So that analogy is given. Of course, these days, instead of not treating well, so what they do is if they feel the burden, some farmers, they sell it to the butcher. So who will kill and sell the meat. And Prabhupada mentions that in some cannibalistic communities, the old grandfather will be killed in a sport, and then they will arrange a feast with the meat of his body. So they will eat that. So, so that's why it is stressed that one should give up the family attachment before one become very old. And in the 14th sloka, so Kapil Bhagavan is mentioning here that though the family doesn't treat him well, but this person is still attached to the family, so is maintained by so. And then due to the influence of the old age, he prepares himself to meet ultimate death. So we see that here how much a strong attachment to the family life, to the kids, to the wife, or to the relatives, family members, even though they are averse to him, but still he thinks about them all. We hear the pastime of Narada Muni telling to Kailash, this boy, when he's a boy, he has to take up Krishna consciousness. Then he tells that he will take up when he finishes his education. Then he tells when he gets married, then the son comes. So like that, so always we'll have some attachment. And when one gets wife, kids, then the attachment becomes more and more. And then they don't plan to take the process of Krishna consciousness, which would help them to come out from all the miseries. So that much strong attachment is there. So even though the family members are averse because he became old, not adding any value, but still he is very attached. So he is not practicing the detachment and taking up Krishna consciousness. And some, even though when they become old, even though they understand that they will not be taking anything from this material world after leaving the body, but still they are very, very much attached to the wealth or properties that they have earned during their lifetime. Like it is mentioned, like, so one businessman, when he was admitted into hospital due to health issues and became unconsciousness, and all the family members came to see him, and this person was brought back from the unconscious status by the treatment, and then he sees that his wife and kids, sons or daughters or son-in-laws or daughter-in-laws, everybody is there. So he scolds them, saying that if everybody is here, who is taking care of my business? Instead of appreciating them, like showing their love and affection, it scolds them, saying that who is taking care of my business? So some will have the great attachment to wealth or properties, like that. So that attachment to be slowly one should give up as age progresses. So we should give up that attachment to the family, or of course we have to fulfill our responsibilities, but in a detached manner, and then practice Krishna consciousness and get prepared for our final test. So when we are about to leave the body, or while leaving the body, if we can remember Krishna at the time of death, then we can go back home, back to Godhead, and escape all the problems. Otherwise, we have to come back into this material world, and the continuous process of birth and death will go on, and then one goes through the so much suffering in this material world. So, and then in the 15th sloka, we see that how this old man is remained at home like a pet dad, and he eats whatever is so negligently given to him. And not only that, he is affected with many illnesses like dyspepsia or loss of appetite, and he eats only very little food, and he becomes invalid. He cannot work anymore. So these are the real problems that scriptures test: janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha dosha darshana. So not others, like like not having a high income job or a big house with a lot of furniture. So these are not the real problems. The real problems are like janma mrityu jara vyadhi. So one of them here is like so old age and then diseases. So these two are mentioned here. So when one becomes old, so they lose the appetite. They cannot eat as much as they want or whatever they want to eat. Of course, they cannot see properly, they cannot walk properly. So many problems. And in fact, one becomes old age, their immunity system also goes down. So if a disease is like a simple disease like a cold and cough, it gets attacked, it will not go very easily. So when one is in anger, when they get a cold cough, it will go away in 2 minutes, 2 days or 3 days. But when one becomes old, then the same cold and cough, it will take like 2 weeks to go away. So that much suffering is there. The suffering is increased. So Kapil Bhagavan is giving all this information so that one can understand the miseries of this one goes through in this material world, and then they can start preparing themselves and be detached from these material activities, because they understand that this is not a good place to live, and then take up Krishna consciousness seriously and sincerely. So that's what Mother Devahuti's intention also, asking that question. It's not for her, it's for the general people, asking that question of continual process of birth and death. So that after hearing that, one can be detached from the activities of this material world. And then the 16th sloka, we see that so in that diseased condition, this person eyes bulge with the pressure from the air within, and glands become congested with mucus, and he has a difficult breathing. And while exhaling and inhaling, so one would hear this sound, gurgur, so a rattling within throat. So this is a miseries that one goes through when one is in old age or closer to death. So many issues. So that's why Sankara, because when one is in this situation, at that time one wants to practice Krishna consciousness, it becomes very challenging. It's very difficult to take up the process of bhakti at that time, because there is so much pain in the body due to the diseases, the health issues. So that's why Shankaracharya stresses that when all our limbs are active, are working fine, then we have to take up Krishna consciousness and then practice it. So that when our limbs doesn't work properly, because we have practiced in the past, so at least we can able to continue that sadhana. Even if we cannot add more, at least we can continue that whatever the sadhana that we have done in the past. So Shankaracharya says that how can you take up Krishna, I mean the spiritual process, Krishna consciousness, when your limbs doesn't work properly. So in fact, when there is so much pain, it is very challenging to remember Krishna during that time if one has not practiced sincerely and seriously. That's why King Kulashekar says that so he prays to Krishna that to leave the body when all his limbs are in good condition. And more than that, his focus is fixed on Krishna's lotus feet. Because when the limbs are giving so much trouble, then it is a challenge to focus on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Of course, when one becomes pure through the practice of Krishna consciousness and becomes pure devotee, even though the limbs are giving trouble during that age, but Krishna, who is sitting as Paramatma within our body, in the heart, so he will inspire or he will remind the soul, the individual living entity, to remember him, so that he can go back home, back to Godhead, because he has already purified. So that is a way that we have to practice ourselves. I'm talking to myself, and then come to that situation where we can remember Krishna while leaving the body, at the time of that leaving the body, so that we can get out of all the sufferings. So in the text 17, we see that so in this way, this the living entity comes under the clutches of death. So and he lies down, surrounded by lamenting friends and relatives, even though he wants to speak to them, because he is under the control of the time, so he cannot speak. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that so while on the deathbed, like before leaving the body, so many relatives and family members would come to see them. That's a general process. Many of them will come because otherwise others may say that they will point out, hey, when your relative is about to die, how come you didn't go and see him, like that? So of course not in all the cases. And on top of that, of course, in today's busy world, so many relatives may not be able to go and see this person who is about to die, because they might be staying very far away. What to speak of relatives, even sometimes the own family members, they will not get opportunity, like sons and daughters who are staying far away and working, to go and see their close relative or family member who is about to die. So they can only go after the person left the body. But Prabhupada mentions that the family members would come and then they cry because they understand that this person is going to die soon. And this person also seeing them who are crying, so he wants to speak, but he cannot express because he is going through so much pain. One, the pain of that body is giving, and the other pain is so he understands that because he is going to be separated from his family and wealth. So that pain is that's something that he goes through during that time. And in the text 18, we see that this person who engaged in uncontrolled senses, maintaining family, so he dies in great grief and seeing his relatives crying, and in great pain and without consciousness. So he dies in great pain. Of course, we hear that from Garuda Purana, like that. When somebody is dying, so he would go through praying. That pain is similar to the pain of 10,000 scorpions biting him. Like, it is mentioned that if one scorpion bites a person, you would feel so much pain. So then we can understand how much pain one would go through when 10,000 of scorpions bites at one shot at the same time. Of course, that pain depends on how much this person have attachment to his family, like wife, kids, relatives, and wealth, name, fame, the position. So those kind of things. It depends on that. And this person who has engaged with his uncontrolled senses to maintain his family, he doesn't know where he is going after leaving this body. And on top of that, many cases, the family members, they don't appreciate what he has done for them. Instead, they think what he has not done. But still, this man, due to the deep attraction to the family, wealth, and name, fame, position, so he's thinking about them only. So sometimes, Prabhupada mentioned, sometimes, so he tells to his son to take care of a wife and all of, which is nice. But generally, he's not thinking about where he is going, what kind of body is going to get. Is that body is better than the body what he has it, like that. So he's much worried and concerned about his current family members, though he doesn't know where he is going. So that's a strong attachment that one has developed if he is not engaged his senses in the service of Krishna consciousness, and due to that he has to come back. So we don't know whether one would come back into the human body again if he has not taken the process of Krishna consciousness, or he has not done the pious activities. Then due to his sinful activities, he would fall down into the lower species, like a cat, dog, or pig, or tree, or aquatics, like that. And then there will be more suffering, too much suffering. So in the text 19, so Kapil Bhagavan is mentioning that at the death, he sees the messengers of the Lord of Death, and their eyes are full of wrath. And by seeing them, this person gets so much fear, so he passes stool and urine. Prabhupada mentioned that there are two types of passing away. So one kind of passing away is these Yamadutas will come, the messengers of the Lord of Death, and takes him because he has performed sinful activities during his lifetime. And the other is to these, if somebody has done many pious activities, then they will be elevated to the higher planets. Or if one has done Krishna consciousness sincerely and seriously practiced it, then he will be taken to the spiritual world. He'll go back home, back to God, Vaikuntha planet. But here Lord Kapila Bhagavan is talking about those people who has done sinful activities. And for them, the messengers of the Lord of Death, Yamadutas, will come, and they will take him to the abode of the Yamaraj. We see that, their eyes are full of wrath. And due to that, this person will go through a lot of fear, and he passes the stool of urine. So one may think that, Yamadutas and all these things are fictitious, not real, like that. But there are examples, like, I heard one incident which happened in Hyderabad. So this person was seeing the Yamadutas before leaving the body. So he called his family members, and he tells, like, there are these people standing next to him. And his relatives were not seeing it. So then they gave a paper, and with his shaking hand, he draw a picture like how they look like. And it matches to the descriptions that were given our scriptures, the descriptions of Yamadutas. So it is real, like, so these are all, if somebody has done sinful activities, they will be taken to the Yamaraj. And we see that here, Yamadutas, they will arrest him, like how the constables of the state arrest a criminal. In the similar way, the Yamadutas will bind him by the neck with a strong rope and cover his subtle body, and so that he may undergo severe punishment. Of course, we understand that every living entity in this material world, we have two bodies, like subtle body and gross body. Like subtle body is combination of the mind and intelligent and false ego, which we don't see with our material eyes. And the gross body is the body that we can see, made up of these 5 gross elements like earth, water, air, fire, ether. So at the time of death, these Yamadutas will take the subtle body, the subtle body, so that he will go through the punishment. And Prabhupada gives example this, sometimes this in the olden days, the kings, so they will arrest the criminal and they will take that criminal in a boat to the middle of the river, and they will forcefully push his head into the water, and then they'll keep him for a while there. So this person will feel so much pain, and then they will take him out. Then he will feel relief. Then they will put them again into the water. So like that kind of punishments they will give. So similar type of punishments these Yamadutas will also give to the person who is done the sinful activities. And in the text 21, we see some more punishments, like, so this person is trembled, and then while passing on the way to the Yamaloka, the hellish planets, the dogs will bite him. Then he will remember his sinful activities that he has done in the life, during his life. Then he feel very distressed. Of course, by that time, it's already late in the game. So that's why it is stressed that while we are leading our life in this life, we should check our activities and make sure that we are not indulging in any sinful activities. So Prabhupada gave these 4 rules that one should not do, like meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, or intoxication, because they would give the sinful reaction. So, and one should go through the suffering due to those sinful activities. So we should avoid at least those things so that we can escape some suffering. And the best is to take up Krishna consciousness, so that we can burn all our sinful reactions that we accumulated in the past lives and during this life. And in text 22, we see that this person is pushed through the roads of the hot sand, and on top of that forest fire on both sides. And then if he is unable to walk due to the hunger and thirst, so he will be beaten by them. Like, he's whipped on the back, and they don't give any water to drink or no food. You see how much suffering. He's forced to walk through the hot sand roads, on top of that forest fire both sides. So we can see how much suffering that one will go through. And if he is not walking, falls down, then they will beat him, and then they will wake him up and then force him to walk, and there's no food or water. So if he falls down on the hot sand road, then we can understand how much more pain that person will go through. And then the text 23, the last sloka for today. So we see that here, while passing on that road to the abode of Yamaraj, so he falls down, fatigue, and sometimes becomes unconsciousness. So he is forced to rise again, and then this way he will quickly brought to the presence of Yamaraj. So these are many miseries that one goes through after leaving the body, where the soul along with the subtle body is taken to the abode of Yamaraj. So much suffering. So I heard in one lecture that when Prabhupada is preaching Krishna consciousness in the initial days, there are many young American and European devotees joined full-time into the temple and practiced Krishna consciousness very seriously. And one devotee, after some time, due to his previous bad habits, so he fall down from the path of bhakti. So he left the temple, but he's still connected to the devotee, but he's not practicing Krishna consciousness as he was doing earlier. So, and at that time, I don't remember Prabhupada's whether it is 3rd canto or 5th canto, because 5th canto also talks about the hellish planets descriptions. So that book is released. Prabhupada's translations and purports. And then devotees were distributing. And this devotee, the devotee who has left the temple, he also got a copy. And after reading that, and when he understand all these punishments one would go through for these sinful reactions, then he immediately joined into the temple full time again and started practicing his Krishna consciousness very seriously. So then I thought, that devotee who read it and joined full time I felt like, that's a perfect way of reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, even if one is not able to join full time, but at least if we can look at our activities, day-to-day activities, and see that we are not indulged in sinful activities, or most important, if we can convert or make that time connected to Krishna consciousness, or mold that little bit of time into the process of bhakti, then we can be saved from all the dangers. Even if it is little bit. If one is not chanting, if he starts chanting one round, or if one is not into the 16 rounds, then it can increase little bit and divert his time that he is engaging in material activities into the spiritual process, then that would save him from all these dangers. Even if it is little, Krishna says that swalpam apasya dharmasya trayato mahatavaya. Little bit, that would help him to escape from the big dangers. So the Kapila Bhagavan is giving all this information so that one can understand how much suffering one would go through in this material world, so that he can start preparing himself to escape all these problems. And then at the time of death, then one can go back home, back to God. So that's why one should think, so is it really worth going through all these sufferings for a flickering happiness that we get in this material world? Or practice Krishna consciousness sincerely and seriously, that Srila Prabhupada gave to us, like, chanting 16 rounds, following 4 regulative principles, then go back home, back to Godhead, and escape all the miseries. So that we should start thinking about it. I'm sure many of them are already doing it, but this is for myself to look at what activities that I haven't connected to Krishna consciousness, and check it out, and then connect to those things to the process of bhakti, and then make our human life successful and escape all the problems. Yeah. I'll pause it here. Sorry, I took little time, longer time. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank